The letter arrived on a Thursday. Thick parchment, crimson wax seal, no return address. Klara Mason turned it over in her hands several times before tearing it open. The ink was oddly dark, brown, almost like dried blood, and the handwriting flowed like something out of the 19th century. Greater than, Miss Klara Mason, we regret to inform you of the passing of your grandmother, Meredith Holloway. As her last living heir, you are entitled to the entirety of her estate, located at 13 Wraithmore Lane, Hollows Fall. It is advised you arrive no later than October 13th to complete probate formalities. Kindly do not delay. Holloway and Griggs, legal custodians of the Holloway estate. Klara stared at the name. Hollows Fall. She hadn't heard those words in over 15 years. She hadn't wanted to. That place was a ghost town, as far as she was concerned, some fading smear of a memory where she'd once spent her childhood summers. Back before the incident. Back before her parents swore never to speak of it again. She hadn't seen her grandmother since she was 10. Meredith Holloway had been the kind of woman who scared children without trying. Sharp eyes, sharper words, always whispering to the house when she thought no one was listening. And now the house belonged to her. The drive to Hollows Fall took 6 hours. The town wasn't on most GPS maps anymore. The last 30 miles were forest roads, then dirt tracks, then nothing but trees whispering to each other in a language only the old and dying could understand. When Klara finally pulled up to 13 Wraithmore Lane, the sun was low behind the hills, casting long, crooked shadows across the Holloway estate. The house stood like a forgotten sentinel, 3 stories of gray stone, steep gables, and windows that glinted like dark eyes. The front porch sagged under time's weight, and the garden had been swallowed by thorn and ivy. She swallowed hard. This was hers now. Inside, the air was thick. Not dusty, not musty, just still, as if the house itself had been holding its breath. Everything was untouched. Furniture still in place. Teacups in the cupboard. A cracked porcelain doll sitting upright on the mantel. And photographs. So many photographs. Old black and white portraits lined the walls. Family members she didn't recognize, staring at her with blank, accusing expressions. There was even one of her, as a child, holding hands with someone whose face had been scratched out. Klara backed away. Something about the silence here felt loud. That night, she stayed in the room that used to be hers. Same bed, same wallpaper, faded roses. The same strange draft that came through the floorboards, even when the windows were closed. At 2:33 a.m., Klara woke with a start. The room was ice cold. She sat up, heart thudding. Her breath clouded in the air. She reached for her phone. Dead. She hadn't forgotten to charge it. Then came the sound. Whispers. From the hallway. Not loud, not clear, but real. She pressed her ear to the door. She came back. She doesn't know. We warned her. The whispers stopped when she touched the doorknob. And then, a child's giggle, right behind her. She spun around. Nothing. But the mirror above the dresser had fogged up, and on the glass, written in a fingertip trail, was one word. Traitor. Klara didn't sleep for the rest of the night. She sat in the armchair by the window, a blanket pulled around her, staring at the mirror where the word had faded into nothing. Her phone, still lifeless, lay on the bedside table. No service, no power, no explanation, just silence, and that feeling, that she wasn't alone. In the morning, the sun came in weak and gray through the thick trees surrounding the property. The kind of light that made everything look colorless, drained. Like the world itself had stopped breathing. She searched the room again. Nothing in the closet. Nothing under the bed. The mirror was clean, dustless. The floorboards were solid. But when she stepped into the hallway, she noticed something she hadn't before: a door at the far end of the corridor, beneath the attic stairs. Small, iron-handled, painted black, locked. The doorknob didn't budge, no keyhole, just old wood and rusted hinges. But what struck her most was the feeling, an almost physical resistance in the air around it. Like something behind that door was pushing back. She placed her palm on it. Cold, wet, even, as if something inside was breathing. She backed away. Downstairs, she made tea the way her grandmother used to, loose leaves in a cracked porcelain cup, steeped until almost black. She sat at the kitchen table, trying to calm the storm in her chest. She told herself she was being paranoid. The house was old. It creaked and shifted. Her mind was just reacting to the memories she'd buried for so long. And yet, when she reached for the sugar bowl, she saw it had been moved. Just slightly. A few inches to the left. Enough to be wrong. And the teacup, cracked on the other side now. Her hands trembled. In the afternoon, she explored the rest of the house. The library was untouched. Books still on the shelves, covered in decades of dust. Most were thick volumes with titles in Latin, German, and a language she couldn't recognize. One sat open on the desk, yellowed pages curled at the edges. A page was marked with a torn photograph. It was a picture of a girl. Her, but younger, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing in the garden behind the house, smiling. A tall woman stood behind her, arms resting gently on her shoulders. Her face had been torn away. But the caption on the back read, "Greater than Klara and her sister. Spring, 2006. She blinked. Sister. Klara didn't have a sister. Did she? That night, the whispers returned. 2:33 a.m. Traitor. Liar. She forgot. She didn't even pretend to sleep. She sat in the hallway, just outside the locked black door, flashlight in hand. When the clock on her phone, which had somehow regained power without charging, struck 2:33, the whispers seeped out from the crack beneath the door. She dropped the flashlight. The beam flickered violently, and then, scratching, from the other side, nails on wood, not frantic, not fast, just steady, like something was writing. Then silence. She leaned closer. One breath, two, and then, thump, a heavy bang from the other side. She ran back to her room, slammed the door, and pushed the dresser in front of it. Something was happening in this house. And it was only just beginning. The next morning, Klara found footprints. Not her own. Tiny, barefoot prints, dusty but recent, leading down the hallway and ending at her bedroom door. They hadn't been there the night before. She would have noticed. Worse still, they only led in one direction. No return prints, as if someone, or something, had entered her room, but never left. By noon, Klara had stopped pretending she was imagining things. She decided to go into town. Maybe the legal office, Holloway and Griggs, could explain more. Maybe she could find someone, anyone, who remembered her grandmother, who could tell her what the hell was going on. Hollow's Fall was only a few miles down the road. Her car barely made it down the overgrown gravel path. The town was smaller than she remembered. Half the buildings were boarded up. The church was missing its steeple. The general store had a sign that said closed for repairs, clearly a lie, judging by the shattered windows and rotting roof. Only the diner remained open. A flickering neon sign buzzed weakly in the afternoon heat, Darla's Eats. Inside, it smelled of burnt bacon and pine cleaner. A few old locals sat in the booths, staring into cups of black coffee. When Klara entered, the conversation stopped cold. She approached the counter. A heavy-set woman in a yellow apron raised an eyebrow. "You're not from around here." "I used to be," Klara said. "Klara Mason. Meredith Holloway was my grandmother." The woman paled slightly. Her hands stopped wiping the counter. One of the old men near the window mumbled something. "What was that?" Klara asked. He looked up with cloudy eyes. "You shouldn't have come back." She left without finishing her coffee. The legal office was exactly where she remembered it, between the post office and the abandoned bookstore. But when she stepped inside, the receptionist looked at her in confusion. "Holloway and Griggs?" Klara asked. "They closed 20 years ago, miss." "That can't be right. They sent me this." She pulled the letter from her bag. The woman read it, frowning. "This is impossible. Mr. Griggs died in 2009. Mr. Holloway even earlier." Klara took back the letter. The ink still smelled fresh. She left, heart pounding, unsure of what to believe anymore. That night, Klara returned to the library in the house. She opened the book that had held her childhood photo and flipped through the pages. Spells, rituals, family trees written in multiple hands. Margins filled with notes like, "Greater than, blood cannot hide from blood. One child must be forgotten so the other can survive." And finally, tucked into the last page, a sealed envelope. It was addressed to, "Greater than to the one who remembers nothing." Klara hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a photograph, again, of her and the faceless girl. But this time, the back read, "Greater than you were never supposed to remember her." Underneath the photo, a birth certificate. Name, Eliza Holloway. Mother, Meredith Holloway. Sibling, Klara Mason. She stared at it, her breath catching. She had a sister, and someone had gone to great lengths to erase her from existence. Later that night, Klara sat cross-legged in front of the black door. The whispers had grown stronger. No longer just soft voices, but pleas. "Klara, help me." He made her choose. The door shivered under her touch. She placed her ear against it. "Who are you?" she whispered. The answer came like a breath through the keyhole. "Greater than, your sister." Klara didn't sleep. She sat outside the black door until sunrise, knees drawn to her chest, hands trembling. Her sister. She had a sister. But why had no one ever told her? Why had her parents erased her? Why had her grandmother locked the truth behind that door? The next morning, Klara returned to town. She had questions, real ones, and she wasn't leaving the diner without answers. "Back again?" the woman in the yellow apron asked, uneasily. "I need to know about the Holloway family," Klara said. "Everything." The woman hesitated, glancing at the old man by the window. He shook his head slowly. "Please," Klara added, "I think I'm going insane." That broke something in the woman. She motioned to a stool. "Sit. My name's Darla. I was your grandmother's neighbor back when Hollows Fall still had people." She poured coffee but didn't drink. "I remember you and your sister. Twins, they said, born screaming into a thunderstorm. You used to run around town like shadows." Klara stared at her. "I don't remember her." Darla nodded grimly. "You weren't supposed to. She died." A pause. "No," Darla whispered. "She disappeared." The whole diner went still. "Folks say Meredith did something. A ritual. She was into old things. Books, curses, bloodlines. Said the Holloway women were protectors of the veil. Kept something evil locked in that house. Said it needed balance." "Balance?" Klara asked. "One lives." One is forgotten. That was the rule. Dash dash dash. Klara stumbled out of the diner, her mind spiraling. One lives. One is forgotten. So her grandmother had made her forget Eliza. Had erased her memories, removed all trace of her. But why? And more importantly, where was Eliza now? Dash dash dash. Back at the estate, the air was different. Heavier. Like the house knew she was getting too close. She entered the library again and began tearing through drawers, shelves, boxes, looking for anything that could break open the truth. She found a key, small, silver, hidden inside a candle holder. She knew immediately where it belonged. The black door. Dash dash dash. That night, just after 2:30 a.m., she stood before the door again. The whispers were clearer than ever. Klara, come back. She's still here. Hands shaking, she slipped the key into the rusted lock. It turned. Click. The door swung open with a creak that felt like a scream. Cold, foul air rushed out, smelling of wet stone and iron. Steps descended into darkness. Dash dash dash. She went down. Flashlight in hand. Every creak of the stairs echoed like thunder. The basement was larger than she expected. Carved into rock, the walls lined with shelves, filled with dolls, bones, and jars of teeth. A ritual space. Black candles. A chalk circle stained with something dark and dried. And in the center, a cradle. Empty, but still rocking. Klara stepped forward. Whispers filled her head, not from outside but from within. A pressure behind her eyes. A memory she hadn't accessed in years. Dash dash dash. She saw herself, a child again, standing at the top of the stairs, watching her grandmother chant in the darkness. A second girl by her side, crying, holding her hand. A mirror, a blade, a promise. Greater than, you will forget, Klara. You must forget. She must carry the curse instead of you. A flash of light. Then, nothing. Until now. Dash dash dash. Klara gasped. The truth hit her like lightning. She hadn't just been the twin who lived. She had been the one chosen. Chosen to forget. To live free while her sister stayed bound in this cursed place. Dash dash dash. Something moved behind her. She turned. A figure stepped from the shadows. Small, barefoot, dressed in a faded white nightgown. Hair over her face. Whispers leaking from her skin. Klara. Dash dash dash. Klara. The voice was like wind sliding through a cracked window, gentle, hollow, and impossibly cold. The figure stepped into the flashlight beam. The girl's face was pale, her eyes ringed in bruised shadows. Her lips barely moved when she spoke again. You left me here. Klara took a trembling step back. Eliza. The girl tilted her head. I waited. You were supposed to come back. But you forgot. You always forget. Tears welled in Klara's eyes. I didn't know. I didn't remember. They made me. Grandma. She chose. The cradle behind them groaned and fell still. She made you forget. She made me stay. The room darkened as if a cloud had passed over the flashlight. Klara tried to speak but choked on her breath. Why are you here? The girl raised a hand and pointed at the chalk circle. Because the door never closed. You left it open. And now it's too late. Dash dash dash. Klara woke up in her bed. Morning light filtered through the blinds. Her heart still thundered. Her mouth tasted like ash. Had she dreamt it? No. Her shoes were still muddy. Her flashlight lay on the nightstand, battery dead. And her hand, a black smudge on her palm. The same sigil from the chalk circle. Dash dash dash. She spent the day researching the Holloway family. Among the books in the library, she found records dating back centuries. Women in the family had always lived in that house. None had sons. All had a twin at birth. But only one ever lived past childhood. A ritual, a pact, a price. Greater than, the vessel must be chosen. One will carry the curse, the other the burden. The survivor forgets. The sacrificed remains. And in each case, the one who remained, lingered. In the house. In the walls. In the whispers. That night, Klara stood before the black door again. The key still fit, but this time, the door opened without a sound. The cradle room was gone. Now it was a hallway. Stone walls. No end in sight, lit by faint candles that hadn't been there before. Eliza's voice echoed softly, "Come and see." Klara followed. The corridor twisted, deeper and deeper underground. She passed names carved into the walls, generations of Holloway women. Then she came to a mirror. Framed in iron, ancient, her own face stared back, but behind her, another face appeared. Eliza, only now she looked older. Her nightgown torn, her eyes black and endless. "You're almost ready," Eliza whispered behind the glass. Klara touched the mirror, and it rippled, like water. Suddenly, hands burst through the surface and grabbed her wrists. She screamed, tried to pull away, but the mirror was pulling her in. A howl of voices rose around her. Traitor, liar, thief, and then, silence.